Hello and welcome to another jungle video, and in this one we are going to be talking about why and how you should invade in order to become the best carry jungler you can possibly be. And no, I don't mean boring invades that reap nothing. I'm talking about the invades that sow chaos, disarray, they deny, they open the game. You will cause the enemy jungler pain and suffering and 100% tilt them for the next 3 games. Or 300. Most of the times an early pressure invade, whether it's level 1 or a level 2-3 buff invade, doesn't have the effect you wanted because you don't know what to do afterwards. I'm going to show you how to keep that pressure up and basically take over every game with this playstyle. Obviously the junglers you can use for this are on your screen now. As always, please consider leaving a like and of course subscribing if you like the content. The Patreon is also filled up with coaching VODs for you to access and enjoy. And now without further hesitation, let's begin. So I have 2 games here from one of the best junglers on EU West, Sawyer, who is playing his patented Nidalee, and I will link game histories to these in the description below as well. Now we're going to start off with this game, which is based off a level 1 invade. I know that's not always realistic, so I do have a second game that is based off a level 3 invade. But this one versus the Mundo really does show you how to keep up sustained pressure when you have an advantage, and that's basically what you want to do no matter where you actually get off your first invade. So hopefully at the end of this video, you have an absolute full picture of what to do and what not to do. Now what you are observing is a late level 1 invade by the bottom lane and jungler to fight the other bottom lane and jungler, and if you don't do this versus a Mundo at least level 1, 2, or 3, what are you doing? Make sure you punish this champion for existing in the jungle and don't let him get away with AFK farming. That being said, the Graves did have prior first, rotated first, but the problem with that is there aren't many better junglers at level 1, 2, 3 invades than Nidalee. Range, melee, long range spear bombs, absolutely relentless auto-attacking, and of course she has it execute on the Cougar form Q. Now Mundo does the best he can in this situation, which is to grab a return kill. She gets stacks on a Dark Harvest, and now she can do the blue, and she can do the grump, and she can do the wolves. This is where most of you, actually I'm gonna just go out on a whim here, 99% of you lose all advantage. While I'll challenge a Nidalee does the whole blue side. Why? Because the Mundo has no choice. He can stick around and come and face check again, but there's gonna be no buff. There's gonna be no grump. Leona has no sum. Ziggs is bottom lane. He just has to go up to his red side. I mean, what's his other choice in this situation? Run straight to the Nidalee's blue, take her blue side, and then fall back to his red? He could also simply do his red and go to the Nidalee's blue. That's usually your standard approach. All of a sudden, as Nidalee, you should realize you have pinned down the Mundo in a way that the Executioner Mundo skin might enjoy. And Evelyn. This means that as the enemy mid laner disrespects what happened level 1 and pushes in any sort of way, which is what a range versus melee matchup should do, Graves was set, please gank it immediately. You do not need your red right now. You do not need to full clear. You do not need to turbo sprint to your blue to defend it. Impact the lanes. Graves is obviously going to run to the Mundo, but the Mundo has no interest. He just wants to make sure he gets level 3, gets some camp experience back, and gets out of a bad situation. The thing is, remember what jungling is all about. Impacting lanes and making sure that your laners have leads and you have leads, ensuring we have total objective and map control. Obviously that falls to us. But firstly, the enemy jungler should be prevented from doing those things. Nidalee knows this. She clears the crab and sees that the Viego is diveable. That means before you head to your blue side, you've already got a ticking blue buff. We don't need to worry about our red just yet. Let's head straight to the top lane, lay a trap on the Krugs just to track where the Mundo may or may not be. Mundo shows up because obviously he was flanking from behind. We kill the Viego, we push the Mundo out of his position, and now this is great pathing from the Mundo to stay in the game. The Nidalee has basically played the map such that if he did decide to do this, now it's very obvious where he's going to be. So once she discovers that, hey, my grump has been stolen, this upsets me, Mundo had walked over the trap at the Krugs. Don't go back to base. Don't sequence down. Don't ignore the fact that the Mundo stole your stuff. We are not looking for 1-for-1 trades. Go back into his jungle, you have mid lane prio, Cannon just TP back to the top lane, keep harassing him. Now, both mid laners do rotate. It is a very close fight because of the nature of the matchups. The spear may miss, but you can still do a lot of damage. As we mentioned, playing from range as Nidalee, knowing when to go in and hop around is a core part of her kit in skirmishing. But you do end up getting 2 kills for your team, a couple of assists. That's a lot of gold. That's an alternator, it's Dark Seal, it's Sork Boots, and ideally, yes, we would look to head to our bottom side because we know the Mundo, after, being denied his whole blue quadrant, and after the fact that he stole your blue and grump as Nidalee, he took his whole red side with you invading him and killing him again. Where else is he gonna go? Tier 2 grump, tier 2 wolves, and also you will notice that while we want to kind of do our red, maybe some Krugs to get level 5 first, if your mid lane is rotating, if there's a fiesta ongoing around the tower, low health targets, please make yourselves right at home, rotate over there, pick up kills you need to, and because as I said, we know the Mundo's there, you don't want to let the enemy jungler get potential shutdowns while we're farming. Make sure you're in the action, punish them, kill the Mundo again, take his grump because we can, know that he's respawning, still level 3, so we need to get out, You can afford to do your Krugs and finally do your red. Yes, it's delayed, but the whole point of this is pressure, pressure, pressure. Denying the enemy jungler, taking all those stuff, stifling their experience gains, sowing chaos across the map so that they really don't know what to do. And because of this, the Mundo sees you bottom lane, he knows you're doing your Krugs in red, he thinks, okay, well now I can gank top lane, I can take your Gromp, maybe your Wolves. He has to try and get something back, but that's a long way for him to go, and what does it do? Opens up the Nidalee to take the dragon. Opens up the Nidalee to steal his blue, to steal his Gromp again and look for the wolves. That's right, you're not falling back to your jungle, you're not defending your camps, you're taking all his stuff, forcing him to go where you want him to go, and yes, he does get the Herald in this case, well played. But one of the best parts about invading and counter jungling to this level is that it gives you the absolute perfect angles for ganks and counter ganks. Oh hello Graves, die. Oh hello Mundo, I guess you're unkillable, but I know you're gonna go to your Raptors now because there's nothing bot side. You saw me go to the bottom side, so let me invade your Raptors. It is a closer fight than most would anticipate, but you have to remember that Nidalee has a huge lead and an execute, which is, kind of important against the health stacking Mundo. This results in the Nidalee being able to get the highest level camps on the map. The Raptors, the Red, the Krugs. She can gank top lane, a little bit of a runaround, but eventually the Viego does fall. Then she can fall back down to a Gromp and blue, and you would have seen on the small screen that the Mundo is engaging in some fisting, throwing his 500 kilo dumbbell at the faces of your laners. You kind of wish they wouldn't give him these freebies and these kills and these shutdowns, but at the end of the day, this is the trade-off when you spend this much time taking their stuff. Eventually, they will make a play out of desperation. They can't catch up by farming, they will have to catch up by ganking and fighting. And let's face it, your laners are also going to die in this situation as well, so it's kind of realistic. Now, as you see her hold mid lane in sequence down to her red side jungle, I popped it up. You would have noticed that she missed a TP by Viego as a potential gank, but at the same time, you must maintain some degree of control over the whole map, not just one side, because otherwise you give him that catch-up availability. That was a very long extended sequence by the Nidalee. She was out a long time, had only backed once, so you only really do this when the flow of the game presents itself to you, and you have that pressure point like you do with this kind of champion. Night Harvester is finished, and because we're having a really nice and easy game, we'll get that Magi as well. Mundo is once again looking for a fight in the mid lane 3v1 on the set, and this is where a lot of you would go wrong as well. You've had such a great first 12 minutes, and then you throw this lead into the mid game, the Mundo outscales you, and you're complaining about your laners. That's because you're probably doing your camps, you're probably doing things that you shouldn't be doing, instead of simply rotating yourself as the most fed member with a 40-odd CS lead over the Mundo, and then translating that into a huge team fight for your team. And yourself, you also get fed. From this, again, don't retreat to your jungle. The dragon's spawning, the Mundo went topside. We're going to use that time to see what camps are available for us to secure. If nothing, kill the Ziggs. If he's overstaying, obviously they always do, punish him. Hold the wave. Take any camps that might be available to you on your red side, specifically the red buff. You know that the Mundo was seen topside, confirmed by vision science. Goes back to base. Where's he going to go next? 100% down to the bottom lane. Camps are up, dragons up, and you guessed it. You invade, you take it. Look at this. Second dragon for us. He is 3 levels down. He is almost half the CS. And when you know how to invade, and when you know how to do it well, and when you do it as unrelentingly as Soya does on EU West, well, if you're playing a Nidalee, Graves, Shark, or Rengar, you're gonna have a lot of fun. And the enemy jungler is most likely going to become an ADC main, because if you're gonna take this much abuse and be this far behind the enemy jungler, you might as well be there. And from here, it's a case of continuing that pressure and making sure you can close up by 15, 20, 25 max. You kill anyone that oversteps, you make their jungle. Your river has always been your river. Make sure you get that second herald for a great push. The third dragon should set itself up. But what happens when we don't have as much lane prio? What happens when we don't have this level 1 luck and we want to try something at level 3? Let's have a quick rundown of a Nidalee vs Lee Sin. Obviously the practices of the Mundo game are the same, just a few differentiating factors if things don't go quite as well, but you still want to use this playstyle. As you can see, Lee Sin starts bottom lane, he gets a leash. What would you do as Nidalee most of the time? 5-6 camp and then chill. Boring, I say, and if you're in a lower elo game, specifically, let's just say Platinum below, it does work in low diamond as well, you don't have to be playing Nidalee, but a buff Gromp invade into their red can work insanely well against the 5-6 camp clearers, especially if you know where they began. However, should you be playing a Graves, Nidalee, a Sharko, or something irritating like that, why not do a red buff to a red buff? Because you can wall hop and circumvent any pixel bush wards or any other vision that might be laid. However, if the enemy top laner puts what I can only call an absolute savant level ward, because Soya does this more often than not, Nidalee will be spotted going towards this red buff invade. You can press tab, you'll see 4 CS, 1 red buff, and then she's just looking to snipe yours. Karma rotates, Lee Sin rotates. In fact, everyone on the top side of the map rotates, and you've got yourself a good old-fashioned river fight, which you want to make sure you at least get 1 kill. If you can avoid death, do so. But sometimes when you don't go back for that early scanner at level 1, you get caught out by a good ward, and this can happen, so just make sure you're paying attention to that lane prio. But that doesn't mean your invading days are over, because the Lee Sin now lost his red. You did manage to secure that. He's going to fall back down to his raptors and maybe look to try and scuttle you. He also knows that as Nidalee, you're going to be coming straight out of base to your blue side, and he won't have the same kind of prio from his top and his mid. However, instead of doing raptors into maybe the bottom side crab and looking to impact the map that way, he goes back to the top side crab, and Nidalee doesn't stop to do camps. She sets a trap, she smites it, and an all-out brawl impacts the map again. Except this time the enemy bottom lane joins, and it's even worse. So please pay attention directly to the rotations, to where you want to fight the enemy jungler and who might be able to help out. In lower elo games, sometimes your team will rotate, sometimes their team will rotate, sometimes no one will rotate. Perma invasions like this and the high pressure jungling will have downsides like you see in this game. The other game against the Mundo worked out beautifully, but this is turning directly into more high risk, high reward, and I don't advise doing this unless you're fully in control of your champion, tracking, and you're kind of smurfing. Or Clash or Flex 5s and things like that. And while invading, setting traps, and having total map control worked against the Mundo, against the Lee Sin here we don't quite have that beginning. But as you can see, that doesn't mean it's finished. Do your blue, do your wolves, maybe do your grump if you have the time. If you see the Camille low, use those F keys, click around the map, rotate again, kill her. Oh, look at that, some Krugs. Oh, look at that, a second tier raptor spawn. I'm gonna yoink these because the Lee Sin, when he died again, had taken everything on the top side minus the Krugs. So 99% he's gonna head to the bottom side, get that crab, clear his blue camps again. And so the invasion might not necessarily be, setting traps and killing, but it can be very high level counter jungling that still allows you to sow chaos, deny experience, have great angles for ganks, and continue having that high pressure across the map. Finally, if we fast forward a little bit, what this invading does when you have control wards and trinkets is you can leave that deep vision. So when you know he's on that red buff spawn, second rotation, you have visual confirmation, you want to impact the map a bit more than you've been able to do so due to the fact that the enemy laners were rotating, go for that bottom lane dive, go for the bottom lane, mid lane ganks, make sure you get those dragons, and even if the enemy jungler is able to take a crab and snowball a lane with 5 plates, as long as you're doing a good enough job counter jungling, impacting lanes, and at least getting half the objectives, you should still be in a position to lead your team to victory. But I can definitely recommend against the sort of fiesta approach you see in the second game, and you can take the absolute wins from some of the invades like counter jungling and counteracting on the opposite side of the map. But then it's also important to default into more of a logical jungling style where you sequence your camps, you can kind of be present in every lane, you just do normal things without an unrelenting need to invade it every second of the game. That'll only really happen when you have invades that really pay off early, whether it's a level 1 against the Mundo and you can keep that pressure up, track them, cut them off, or if your buff to buff invade works really well and you're able to get out, which you would most likely be able to do in the majority of elos. I don't think you're going to have a Camille with that savant level ward as we saw earlier. And if you do a level 3 buff invade on the enemy jungler and obliterate them and take their camps, what are they going to do? They're forced to go other side of the map just like the Mundo. You have direct access to cut them off to impact the lanes. And that's what we're looking for, and that's why hyper-aggressive invading jungling can still work in Season 11, provided you execute correctly and you pay attention to everything we discussed in this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. Don't forget the match histories are linked below. Make sure there's no knots invading your beard by combing regularly. And as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.